French on your left with Rakdos Demons versus Maxx Kominowski on your right with Izzet Phoenix. In my opinion, this is sort of like the two fair decks of the format that are at the top doing their best and battling it out.
Yeah, the players said both had orange sleeves. I wasn't sure if they were like not 100% positive which deck was which, or like if they had the wrong deck. But yeah, Max on Izzet Phoenix. You mentioned, we mentioned before the last round, players who not necessarily like the one trick ponies, or like you expect these people to be playing specific decks. And Max is certainly an absolute master of the Phoenix deck, and I'm sure a lot of people going in seeing Max on the event list probably expected him to be playing Phoenix, and May piloting the Rakdos Demons deck. So a little bit similar to what we saw from Garrick in the previous round, although deciding to play red for, the powerful Fable the Mirror Breaker, Fear of Missing Out, Blood Tithe Harvester, instead of that white splash. Now I will say May does actually have the Archfiend of the Drosses in her main deck. We saw those in the sideboard for Garrick, so a little bit of a dynamic shift. And I think one that's very important in this matchup, because we mentioned the Phoenix deck has a lot of red-based removal, Fiery Impulse, Lightning Axe, doesn't really have a clean one-for-one answer to something like Archfiend. So if you expected a lot of Phoenix, you would presume that Archfiend seems like a pretty good main deck card against them.
Yeah, and Thoughtseize here is going to take Artist Talent to hand here, a bunch of cantrips, Prophetic Memory, and Fire Impulse, and an island. So no way to cast those removal spells just yet here. But like you mentioned, May has that Dross, which is going to be a hard answer card. Maybe something she was thinking about is, do I want to fight over that later? Also has Shieldred in hand. Very powerful one, along with Fable, the Mirror Breaker. As Max going to start off with Sleight of Hand here. Max really, got sort of known at first for success here on the NRG series, but also for Modern Murktide, a deck he loves and is something that he's sort of a master of. Qualified for the Pro Tour in Denver at the RC there, playing that deck. And the Max is like, hey, accidentally revealed the Spiral of Canal, and I'm gonna probably be playing that next turn. Little smile there, little dexterity error, but also it's not really gonna change May's play, even if she knew it, right? She's not gonna be like, oh dang, Max hit a land drop.
Yeah,
we are gonna see the Blackleaf Cliffs and a passing of the turn, mutable in hand here. Maywell, the third land rolled up. The Spiral of Canal that was dropped gets played. And we did pick up a Free the Fae here on our draw step.
Yeah, and just wanted to point out, Max is playing what appears to be almost identical. I think Max, there's maybe one card different than Ellenbogen's list, but most importantly, is sporting 4 copies of four Artist Talents here in the main deck. So it seems like both of these players who are registered Phoenix are really into just leaning on that rather than the Ledger Shredders. And we see a consider response to a Fable, maybe looking for something like a Spell Pierce.
Yep. And that seems to be the case here. Otherwise, Free the Fae fills up your graveyard a little better. So Max does seem to be a little worried about this Fable, and should be worried about the rest of May's hand, as she is just 4-drop central. We talked about Max is sort of, known for these sort of things. May has been practicing for this event a lot on Magic Online and has actually top 8'd or won a challenge with every deck she brought today. She even tweeted, if you're playing against me in champ, it's probably pretty hard to figure out what I'm playing, because she's just sort of been winning a bunch with all of her decks and is a little unbothered by the situation, as it does look like at the end of turn here, we are going to Fire Impulse down this Goblin Shaman. Max knows the Mace deck list is full of powerful 4s because it is open deck list, and it wants to fight over that. And I
mean, there's definitely some powerful 4s in May's hand. You probably couldn't draw it up any better, having this sort of start against Phoenix, where Thoughtseize into Fable, and then your hand is just all bangers. It's going to be really hard for Max to answer all of these. Now, the question for May is, which one does she decide to play first, Archfiend or Shieldred? I'm guessing maybe you want to go with the Archfiend first to kind of try and bait out some removal spells from Max, because we mentioned that one does require 2 kill spells. But you could also go with the Shieldred first if you expect Max to have more cantrips. But that one actually does trade 1-for-1 with Lightning Axe. So it'll be interesting what she decides to go with here.
Yeah, I think if Max had tapped out for a card like maybe Artist Talent, we might have saw May play Shieldred early, right? It does trade the Lightning Axe, but that would at least make it so Artist Talent has some real cost. But like you mentioned before earlier, we do need 2 for the draw. So I imagine we're going to see draws here, but I do like this mode of just double checking, right? Like, first off, I want to discard anything to this Fable. We picked up Go for the Throat for the turn. A solid card in these sort of spots, especially with draws, because sometimes your opponent will try and jump block you out before the Ula counters kill you. And she decides to keep it and then plays Archfiend of the Dross and the Free the Fae in the response, picks up the Lightning Axe. So well played there from May, because if that had been shielded, Maxx would definitely be picking up this axe.
Yeah, axe and cruise here for Maxx. So you have to decide between one of those. Picking up the axe here, which is interesting because that might signify that maybe he already has a cruise in hand, or is just maybe wants to prioritize finding kill spells. Picked up a fiery impulse. So now Maxx could go, axe, discard Phoenix, fiery impulse, the dross. In addition to this cruise, that might be a pretty good turn here for Maxx, killing the demon, getting a Phoenix into play. It's kind of exactly where you want to be.
Yep, Maxx picks up Free the Fae, unknown as the 3. Potentially a land in there, but like we talked about, did also drew the Shivan Reef. Okay, great. So we have the land drop there from Maxx, and you're seeing why these cantripping hands can be so powerful. As May picks up her card, she's like, I know there's a Lightning Axe in there. You could potentially discard a Phoenix, and then I'm going to get hit. And Maxx is just double checking, like, is this what I'm going to do? Decides, yep, discard the Phoenix, Fire Impulse it, bring back the Phoenix here, and attack for 3, dropping May down to 14. Maxx still at 20.
It has land for turn as well, and I believe the leftovers, I think there might have been another red removal spell. I couldn't quite tell if it was an axe or an impulse here. Maxx playing a little bit close to the chest, so it's hard to see what we have left over. May still has the decision to play Archfiend or Shieldred. Now the question is, which one does she want to deploy now? You've traded the Archfiend for 2 kill spells. You saw the Lightning Axe that was revealed off of the Picklock Prankster get cast to take care of the Archfiend. Is this the time to deploy the Shieldred? My guess is I think maybe you still want to go for the Archfiend before the Shieldred, but it's not clear.
Yeah, it's tough too, right? Because what's going to happen with that dynamic is Maxx can then hold back the Phoenix, because Archfiend of the Dross forces you to attack. Now, we know May has 2 kill spells that can answer that Phoenix, but if Maxx has, maybe one of the Brazen Bars or something, this might be a little awkward of turns, and the Phoenix can just block the Dross and then force the hand in combat. So we're going to see Maxx, in response to this Shieldred, I think, cast this op here. He's going to lose 1 life due to Shivan Reef. So, Shieldred, I guess, forced a little bit of damage. Maxx likes the card on top. And the passing of the turn, May's just saying, hey, I'm remembering my Shieldred trigger if you're going to the draw step. And Maxx did have a Lightning Axe, So he maybe will take the knowledge. You could trade 2 life here in order to try and find a Phoenix. You are at 19, so it's not the end of the world. But Maxx decides, nah, I'm going to Lightning Axe here and preserve my life total. Discarding Picklock Prankster, that's a very powerful refuel card. So May did get to trade some premium resources there. And Prophetic Memory is drawn for the turn, gets played, draws a card. That's going to be at least 1 counter on this Phoenix that can't wait to turn sideways. It's already there. Didn't get untapped from the last turn.
Yep, so Maxx does have an untapped land here. So wonder if there's maybe something like Cruise plus Cantrip. Now we have an Artist Talent. The Phoenix was already ready to go to the red zone to remain tapped, but yeah, counter on the Phoenix. That's going to put May down to 10. I believe, yeah, May's at 10. So now, if May deploys the Archfiend, looks like Archfiend and 3 kill spells in hand. I think May really wanted to find a land that turn, so May she could go Archfiend, copy, hit for 6, hold back the other one, get a little bit of pressure on Maxx. But without that land, it's gonna be a little tough here for May. Do you kill the Phoenix with a counter on it? Do you hold up a kill spell in case Maxx pops off with profs for a turn? She's in a really tough spot.
She's in a tough spot, and Devin, one of her kill spells is Heartless Act. It cannot kill a creature as a +1 counter on it.
Yep.
And so now May is having a very awkward moment of, well, this can maybe kill something else in the future, but it maybe has to be on shrinking duty. She's going to figure this out right now. And like you mentioned, she was really kind of hoping for a land there. And as I think sizing up her options, I know, talked to some of these competitors before the event, and May French felt like her game 1 against Phoenix wasn't great. She was kind of hoping to get a little bit lucky in that regard, kind of have a start like we talked about at the beginning of this game, and then the opponent maybe whiff on the cruise, right? And then game 2 and 3, she feels a lot better about her deck's configuration. Looks like there's just a confirming of life totals here. There have been some pain lands, very easy to be like, oh, I thought Maxx is at 18, no, I'm at 17, and a little bit of tanking.
Yeah, and then, like I mentioned, for May, you also kind of have to be careful of what if, because Maxx has that Wombo combo of Profs plus Talent in play, like you could be facing down a lethal Arclight Phoenix next turn. It's not completely outside of the realm of possibility. Maxx chaining cantrips and all these things. So May does have to consider that, but it looks like she's lining up that Archfiend, and I kind of like this play. You figure, you figure that you're far enough behind right now that you need a lot to go right for you, and maybe you just kind of have to assume that Max's hand is the leftovers are air, but as Max's hand is definitely not air. It looks like there was a Picklock and a Fiery Impulse. Those are some pretty good leftovers here for Maxx.
Yeah, I like this line from May in part 2 just because it's like it presents lethal, right? She has these kill spells that aren't doing much. So the dross, if you make a copy, that's going to deal 4 damage. And then, if Maxx attacks, then all right, cool, there's no blocker, and that's lethal. So we are going to free the Fae into Treasure Cruise. That's going to be a really powerful one here.
So we got to try. Let's see if, I guess there's already a die on there. I was going to say if we can keep track of the props, but there's already, may already put the die there. So we don't have to do that. So 4 right now. 5, right? Because it's two talent triggers in the cruise. So 5, that would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So any other spell is going to make the Phoenix lethal. There's the spell. It's going to go up to 7. And from here, does Maxx have a way to... Maxx does have 1 copy of Into the Floodmaw. So if he is able to find that can bounce the Archfiend and then come over for a lethal attack. And I believe Maxx hasn't played a land yet either, so could also go Red Source double kill spell on the Archfiend.
Very true. We also, might even see just something like Fire Impulse down this Fable, trying to find it into the Floodmaw like you talked about, right? Like if we don't have spells, we probably have lands. And we do have this Phoenix in our graveyard too. So real problem here for May is that she is on chump blocking duty. A Stormcarved Coast is going to come down, and it's another Treasure Cruise. It's going to be up to 10 counters here from the Rummaging, which we see discards a land, and then Treasure Cruise draw 3. Up to 11, it seems like maybe we missed one there. Our bad. Treasure Cruise resolves.
I've lost track. I already can't keep track.
Yeah, lots of good draws here from Maxx. And this is what May talked about, right? Like she was really close to sort of lethal-ish there. She needed to fade on sort of one of these Treasure Cruises. Obviously, this Phoenix deck is built to find Treasure Cruise, so it's a hard ask to get, but we're going to see a discarding of the Arclight Phoenix and then consider will resolve after we've rummaged with the talent we've been considered to consider.
Yeah, May is going to get a turn, but having to chump block the Phoenix with the Archfiend, I'm not really sure if she has any outs.
Yeah, the real problem I think for May is that, she can't really win the game, and Maxx isn't close enough to decking, right? That's sometimes a weird part of this dynamic is like the Phoenix players get unlucky, like we saw with Andrew Ellenbogen, and they don't draw the Phoenixes for a bit, and you can sometimes just like fatal push down the threats that you get grown, and you're drawing so many cards that you do just deck. But it is a very unlikely thing, and you see, May very much kind of like, all right, let me get my draw step and make sure there's nothing in my deck I didn't forget about. It looks like, what's happening is Maxx is figuring out how many creatures he wants to attack with. There's obviously the one Phoenix. And
she already put the Archfiend in the graveyard, but Maxx was like, I want to figure out what to attack with, and pick up a Duress. So I think her hand is now 3 kill spells and a Duress. I can't imagine that is going to really do anything to this battlefield. I guess you can buy a turn by killing the 2 biggest things, taking 3 going to 4. But it's tough. Like we mentioned, it's like even there, like what can she even draw to potentially get out of this? Maybe some combination of like Archfiend plus copy with Reflection, but with only 4 mana and no Archfiend in play or in hand, that's not realistic either.
Artist Talent 2 comes down. We get the Rummage from the first one. Opt, double talent.
Maxx, just don't deck yourself.
Yeah,
that's all you have to do to not. That's all we have to do. Don't drop too many. Don't go too
get a little low. With one of the things too is May is at 7, right? We've gotten in a couple of chip attacks, so it doesn't take much for Maxx to cross the finish line. Now May does have 2 kill spells. We can Heartless Act the one that Prosthetic Memory targets that isn't the super large one, and I think it's a fair bet to say Maxx isn't going to make his other Phoenix a 20/20. He's fine with his 16/5. Yeah, it's hard to know.
What if he wants to go for high score?
Yeah, Heartless Act is going to respond there. Maxx like, okay, and this is a slot too where if Maxx has found one of the spell pierces,
that won't super.
Because now May will be dead to all the Phoenixes, even though she has another kill spell. So Maxx moving on to 1-0 here. We're going to head to our sideboards to see what these players have. to potentially combat one another, as these are two very much expected decks coming to this field. May here has 3 Hidetsu Consumes All, 3 Invoke Despair, 2 Anger the Gods, 2 Go Blanks, 2 Unlicensed Hearse, an Anoint with Affliction, Duress, and Feed the Swarm.
Yeah, so from May's side of things, you want to take a look and see what sort of graveyard hate she has access to. So 2 Unlicensed Hearse, 2 Go Blanks, those seem to be slam dunks. Past that, I mean, I've considered Hidetsugu Consumes All, but the problem is I feel like sometimes it lines up kind of awkwardly, where the graveyard hate being on suspend for a turn gives them an opportunity to like cruise before you play the Consumes All. So I don't know if I necessarily like that one as much. Besides the Go Blanks and the Hearses, I don't think she wants to do a ton else. Like Invoke Despair doesn't line up super well against Spell Pierce. So yeah, it just seems to be the blanks and the Hearses. But yeah, other than that, not really a ton else.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if she wants to bring in Feed the Swarm to fight over Artist Talent and Prosthetic Memory as well. That is sort of the hidden mode on that card as well. But we'll have to see how May wants to fight those fights. Meanwhile, for Max in his sideboard, we have quite a number of cards. These Phoenix players love to have diverse sideboards. And here we have 3 Negate, 2 Third Path Iconoclast, 1 Beacon Bolt, 2 Anger the Gods, 2 Annuls, 2 Brazen Borrowers, the Fiery Impulse, a Prismatic Command, and another Prof. Devin, what do you like here and why?
So deck lists are face up, as you see. We can see on the backup cam players are looking at deck lists, and this is an open deck list event. So Max, knows exactly how much graveyard hate that May has access to. Maybe wants to go towards something like the other Prophetic Memory, because that card can help a little bit against graveyard hate if you can combine that with talents and cantrips. It's sort of gives you this additional angle of attack that doesn't utilize the graveyard. Similarly with Third Path Iconoclast, just plus a bunch of cantrips that can make a pretty wide battlefield. The Brazen Barbers seem pretty good to me because as we talked about, Max's deck is very good at killing small creatures, but not the best at killing 6/6 demons. So maybe he wants to use the Borrower to sort of buy a turn of reprieve from something like that. And then in addition to that, maybe the Beacon Bolt as well to kill larger creatures.
Makes sense. Let's check out these player cards really quick for our 2 players today, as they are still sideboarding. We can sort of still see them in the corner of our screen. And we're kind of go over their accomplishment and sort of what got them here today. Looks like we're going to start with May French here. So main events played 11. Best finish, she got first and won the showdown, the actual last MH2 tournament, playing at Living In for her. She has that 1 top 8 as well. And then a list of her accomplishments there. She's from Indianapolis. Let's check out Max over here and see what he has as a huge flex going on for Max in multiple regards, as it's pulled up on the screen here. So first off, we're flexing, then we have all of our events. We have main events played 6. We had a win, number of top 8s 2, sort of going crazy. We got San Francisco hometown, but also when we look at our sort of free times, what's Max doing? I love to flex when hanging out with my girlfriend. We love a wholesome king. So a little bit behind the scenes on these players and sort of how they made it. The showdown has really sort of changed the dynamic here. We still have a lot of leaderboard spots, and we saw players, like Zoe Riederman and Connor Mullally make our event doing that, but also a lot of sort of best finishes first, and you're not seeing much more from them because we gave them a one and done invite situation here. So Max got his invite very early, focused on life stuff, and now gets to come out and play some high stakes competitive Magic. We love to see it, and we'd love to see you at some of our upcoming events, which we'll show you real quick here, as our first 4 events of 2025 have already been decided and laid out. These are on screen here for you. February 1st and the 2nd in Chicagoland. We have a showdown on Saturday. Showdown, by the way, just because our terminology here, maybe you're not used to the NRG series. Showdowns are what you win. You go straight to champs here. Basically, you win your invite, and we also give out leaderboard points. So we reward consistent results. Team trial is sort of as it sounds, just sort of a 10K with your friends. It's going to be a great time. Can't wait to cover that event. March 15th and the 16th, we're going to go to Madison, Wisconsin. We're going to do another showdown and another trial. May 10th and 11th, we're going to go to Chicagoland for a showdown and a trial. And then June 20th to the 29th, Indianapolis, we're going to have the end of season 1 of the half of the year, what's going to be the 10K showdown and the Sunday team 10K showdown there as well. So that means you and your friends can win that event with the showdown, and all 3 of you will pop up here like we saw from Frederick earlier today. As our players are ready, let's go down to the feature match area as they're dealing up their 7-card hands.
Yeah, we saw on Max's player card, he has the, shout out to Max, he has a Murktide Patreon. Would you say, Mason, that Izzet Phoenix is the Murktide of Pioneer? It feels
Lizard
pretty
Phoenix is
similar,
so
right?
much better than Murktide. So it's a sort of
Yeah,
like
that is
I
also
feel
true.
yeah, they kind of, related, but it's sort of, the family member they tell you not to worry about. Speaking of not to worry about, Thoughtseize on turn 1 here. We have Consider, Opt, Free the Fae, 2 Treasure Cruises, and an Arclight Phoenix, along with a Riverglide Pathway. What are you thinking, Devin?
Presumably, I mean, it kind of makes sense to take the Free the Fae. If you take a cruise, there's still a second copy, and Free the Fae is the card that allows Max to dig the deepest or put the most amount of cards in the graveyard for something like the cruise. So I mean, it's like maybe May's thinking about trying to mana screw backs. You take one of the 1 mana cantrips and hope that he doesn't find a land. And I also, when she fanned through her hand, I saw a copy of her. So you kind of already have the cruises covered. So yeah, it seems to me that you would probably want to take the Free the Fae, but we'll see exactly what she decides to go with.
I think May wants to take the Phoenix, Devin. I think she wants
Oh,
the
okay.
Phoenix and then Hersa. And I think she's thinking, if he draws a null, how mad will I be? Because right, like the Phoenix is going to cover that Free the Fae. Excuse me, the Hearst going to cover the Free the Fae there and check the Phoenix, but decides to take the Consider. It's just going to try and maybe hope Max gets a little bit mana screwed here, as we are going to have our second land lined up here for May. She gets to play her Pathway on the red side. Urborg, everyone's got black mana this game. As Unlicensed Hearst comes down, did Max draw? And he did the annul. You see it from May. Yeah. And that's going to be a tough spot as Opt is played here.
Yeah, that shout out to the annuls, by the way. That's actually a card that I didn't even notice was when we were looking at the sideboards. I hadn't really registered that was a card that you would bring in here. But now that I think about it, it does make a lot of sense with like good against Hearst, good against Annex, and that was a brutal draw step here for Max.
Yeah, that may sort of made a bet on Max is going to get mana screwed and not have time to find a null. This Hearst will go the distance. As Fable the Mirror Breaker comes down, another reason to maybe consider having a null. Worst case scenario, trade Fable.
Yep.
We see a little bit how May sideboard there too, by the way. She has all her tokens in her sideboard. So she'll got some of the fatal pushes. Fable's down and Max has 2 mana, and we know a Free the Fae and a Treasure Cruise is in hand. And you're seeing May sort of make a little joke and laugh there, maybe say something, did you know? You find another answer to all my cards. As Max is tanking on how he wants to navigate his way here, because has a lot of the right tools to win, just needs to make sure we execute on it correctly.
Yeah, and I think I saw a copy of Artist Talent in Max's hand that we're actually deciding to not cast here, instead holding up some mana. Now, May knows about the Free the Fae. Obviously, Free the Fae can't find land, so there's no reason for Max to cast it main phase. But I wonder if not casting the talent means he drew something like a Spell Pierce here, and maybe is thinking about holding that up, potentially for a copy of Annex, or maybe another Fable the Mirror Breaker. And looks like May is thinking about what to discard here. I think she was lining up discarding 2 Fables.
No,
2 fears. 2
out.
fears. Yeah,
yep.
2 fears. So that is going to go to the graveyard. Interesting. Found a
go blank, Devin.
Well, that one's pretty good. Although, if you expect, I guess you can play on Spell Pierce with attack and then have the mutable close combat.
Yeah, and you're seeing May sort of being like, okay, how many cards are in hand? All right, I knew these cards. I want to move to combat. I had this Goblin Shaman. I like the fear of missing out discard, because not only is it a card that doesn't line up super great here, but if he annuls that, you're going to be on full life tilt. So you play around it, and you just discard the enchantment creature.
Well, May said there's only 2 annuls, right? Like, what are the odds?
What are the odds? Is you're seeing, okay, so it looks like May decided to sideboard out her Blood Tithe Harvesters and Fatal Pushes. Gets her treasure token. We are going to see probably this mutable main phase 2 and the go blank. It isn't as great as you would love, but May also knows there's a Free the Fae coming down into potentially a treasure cruise. We could see her do something like Annex. She could play that for 5 mana and hope that Spell Pierce wasn't drawn along with the annul. That would put a 6/6 flyer into play, and she could try and save her go blank, in a world where maybe Max's mana is tied up a little bit. But
well, it's also rough here, because if you don't cast the go blank, Max goes end of turn Free the Fae, finds a spell, puts 3 in the graveyard. That means there's 6 in the grave plus 2 lands in play. You already know the cruise is in hand for Max. So if you don't fire off the go blank this turn, guaranteed that Max can resolve the cruise next turn. So she's in kind of a rough spot. I think she maybe just has to cast the go blank here, unless she just says, okay, I'm going to resolve my Annex through your Spell Pierce and just let you cruise and fight through it.
Yeah, I think she's trying to basically get this down as her big threat. And then, like you're saying, set it up later. So now she only loses to a null here when it comes to counter magic. And she's going to lose a little bit of life, but put the trigger on the stack. Not going to activate the Mutavault in response. Doesn't want to lose a land to a Fiery Impulse, but it is sort of a tight play you can do if the mana gets tapped out earlier, which makes Maxx.
It's kind of an interesting spot there, because if you animate the Mutavault, right? Maxx didn't play a land last turn. So if you animate the Mutavault and Maxx goes for Fiery Impulse on Mutavault instead of casting Free the Fae, then I don't think he can resolve Cruise next turn. So it's possible that maybe May wanted to at least consider activating the Mutavault, but she decides not to do that. Maybe the 2 damage probably doesn't matter too much here.
Yeah, I think it's a spot where May really wants the Demon in play, and this guarantees the Demon if she doesn't activate due to the treasure. Now, obviously, Into the Flood Maw was just added, so that's awful for May. You know, had she gone for the Demon here, it just would be unsummoned immediately. But Maxx has the land for turn, and notably there, Devin has an Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard, so can't fully delve without losing the Phoenix to make things a little more awkward, but does have Artist Talent and is going to deploy that. And has the Spell Pierce. Yeah, so May rewarded for playing around it. And as this drags on a little bit, her Go Blank's getting better, Devin, as Fabled Narrator flips over.
I think she really wants to find an untapped land here, because I saw a copy of Thoughtseize, and I think for her ideal turn, yeah, we're getting a read on Into the Floodmaw. I think her ideal turn would be Thoughtseize the Floodmaw and then just go land, fire up the Annex. But you could also maybe go like Thoughtseize, then Go Blank, pay for Spell Pierce, and she did draw the Mutavault. So a lot of options here for May. You also have the treasure from the Goblin Shaman token too, so you have plenty of mana here to pay for the Spell Pierce. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if she decides to go for the Go Blank or the Annex. Presumably, you want to go for the Go Blank because you do know about the 2 cruises in hand.
Yeah, so she's going to lead on the Thoughtseize. Once again, she has those treasures. The Go Blank will resolve through a Spell Pierce, but we're going to go on Thoughtseize first. She's wanting to make sure she gets the card out of the hand. And Devin, I think she might be targeting the Arclight Phoenix in her mind. Obviously, she'll adjust when she gets there. But if she hits the Phoenix, Maxx only has 1 mana up. There's no card in his deck. We all know all the cards. Maxx won't be able to beat this Go Blank. And May can discard the Phoenix, then Go Blank. And that removes 2 of the more annoying threats out of the game.
Yeah, and I think Maxx doing a little bit of posturing here, maybe thinking about using the Floodmaw on the Shaman token first. You could also Floodmaw the Annex, but May does have 6 mana, so then she can go Blank, replay the Annex. You could bounce the Fable to reset that if you're worried about the flip Fable next turn. A lot of options here for Maxx. And, he has to kind of think about, the presence of Go Blank, at least have that on his radar, as a potential option this turn. So we are going to go for the Floodmaw here, and thinking about what the target is.
Yeah, I think Maxx is basically like, I think May wants to use this, wants to take my Floodmaw, excuse me. Because why would you ever take Phoenix, right?
Yeah, because the Annex is also up too.
Exactly, yeah. But it's just going to remove the Goblin and then get a Rummage, discards the Spell Pierce and says, hey, that's not going to be good enough. And we have Sleight of Hand, Arclight Phoenix, 2 Treasure Cruises here. And, from May's perspective, there's only going to be 1 card left behind. So she kind of gets to, maybe make a little bit of a choice here. She could, for example...
I think what you said makes sense too. I think she's going to take this Phoenix, and the look on Max's face when she says "take your Arclight Phoenix" is going to be just this look of pure horror.
Yeah, she might keep it just because she does have that Torch the Tower as her last card. Yeah. But I think that it makes a lot of sense too to just go like take your Sleight of Hand and then cast Go Blank, right? And then Maxx probably discards the Treasure Cruise. Yeah. And you see May here, she's trying to line up this Torch the Tower as Go Blank's going to make Maxx discard 2 cards of his choice, then exile the graveyard. So we know at least 1 Treasure Cruise is going. So the real question for Maxx is, do I try and top deck out of this and use a Treasure Cruise? Or do I hope to draw a land and hope my Phoenix goes the distance? I already am losing 1. And you see Maxx say, hey, I'm going to keep the Phoenix. And if you're a May French fan, you love to see it as Torch the Tower is the last card. The last spell in May's hand before this Annex trigger. We're going to activate our Mutavault here and then get a drain off the Culling Annex. And this is what we talked about. May said, game 1, I kind of have to fight through these Treasure Cruises, but game 2 and 3, I'm feeling a lot better as here comes the Arclight Phoenix. And May can trade a treasure in order to kill this now and exile it, or she can wait to not trade a treasure. And it looks like she's going to take a second to think about it.
Yeah, she's already down to 12 life, so maybe wants to prioritize or buffer her life total just a little bit here. So we'll have to see what she decides to do. As far as mana is concerned, which I think she's thinking about doing next turn is go flip Annex and then use the Fable to copy the demon. But even if she uses a treasure here, she still has 5 lands plus the treasure left over, which is enough mana to do that. She drew an untapped land anyways, so plenty of mana to do that. And I think maybe we can also fire up a Mutavault here. 3, 4, 5. I guess we don't have enough to go demon, animate Mutavault, and copy the demon. So presumably just go, demon here, copy that hit for 6, and then keep on trucking from there.
Yeah, you know what? We're just gonna hit Maxx for 6 here, and then get the drain 2 off the Annex and pop Maxx down to 6. And then you have a lethal attacker, and you've got more spells coming, and Maxx has nothing. Let's be realistic about this. The Phoenix deck is very good at coming back from these sort of spots if the life total is high, and you have a bit of a graveyard. Maxx doesn't have this thing, so May French is going to tie it up, and we're going to go to game number 3 here.
Yeah, really just, excellent display. That was a very interesting game to watch too, where May had the information of Max's hand, knew exactly what was going on, set up the play to go for that unlicensed Urse, and Max is ripping that a null. But at the end, it wasn't good enough, set up the go blank perfectly, and we'll have to see what happens in game 3.
Yep, and I really also love how, we talked about like, oh, this is a perfect moment to go blank, perfect moment to go blank. But May was like, no, I've got to fight over the things that actually matter. I need to have threats. I need to develop this now. And then is rewarded for that sort of tight play, by both going for the Culling Annex instead of the Demon because the Pierce was in hand. And also, sort of being like, hey, even if you resolve a Treasure Cruise, that's okay because I can just go blank to kind of clean up what's left over. And moves on to game number 3 here. Speaking of moving on, let's take a look really quick here. I think we have our standings going into this round ready for you all, so we can take a look at where the players were at before this round's over. Maybe a little mistake in there, but I do think we have it. So taking a look here, this is where players are at. So really quickly, how the system works is you get to 8 wins. Congratulations, you're in our top 8. You get to 6 losses. Congratulations, you get to hang out with everyone. You are eliminated from the tournament. So we don't have anyone eliminated yet, but we do have a couple players who are in prime position. And, if you were a betting person, these are 2 of the names you would have expected. Dominic Harvey and Theo Jung are only 4-1 players as this round is starting off here. These are both Pro Tour caliber and consistent players. I mean, Dom Harvey played every Pro Tour and Worlds for the last 2 years, top 8 one of them, someone who you probably see on the coverage with us and in the past with past events. Theo Jung, a very similar spot here. But we have a lot of players at 3-2 just due to how our system works here. You can see them on your screen, and no one eliminated yet. Camry and Zoe are in the worst position at 1-4, but still can win out and make it very easily. Our players are ready. Let's head back to the feature match area.
Yeah, and worth noting, we did mention at the sort of the top when we took over the broadcast, players need to get to 8 wins in order to secure up a top 8 spot. And with 8 rounds of coverage today, with players no remaining players are undefeated, which means we will not be locking up any top 8 spots today. But we're sure to lock up at least 8 of them tomorrow, as we see a duress here. Maxx has got 2 Phoenixes in hand along with 2 cantrips, so. Not the best hand if you are a Maxx Kominowski enjoyer. As far as which cantrip May is looking to take, is there a difference? I don't know if there is.
Sleight of hand gives you more information up front. Op lets you wait longer for that information.
Mm-hmm.
Op's worse against. Opt is worse against Shieldred. Slight's better. So I imagine you just take the sleight because imagine this, right? Maxx sees like an okay spell. Maybe he keeps it, but if he has both, he might find artist talent. And so it isn't huge, and Maxx is probably going to, have a lot of information that doesn't really matter in these next couple turns. He's going to have to fire them off, or he's going to top deck certain cards and just slam his mana that way. And we're seeing that here with the Opt as the draw. Opt for a draw.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Maxx really wants to try and find that artist talent. That's kind of what sort of gets this Phoenix deck going and makes it start to click on all cylinders and just hit all of your land drops and smooth out your draws, fill up your graveyard for crews, discard those Phoenixes in hand. So Maxx really wanting to find one of those artist talents. As we see May's hand, she's got a couple of Fear of Missing Outs, and that's all I saw when I looked at her hand. I didn't quite get a good look. Blightstep Pathway hitting the graveyard. But yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how Maxx develops from here.
And notice, May holds on the duress because from her perspective, right? Obviously, Max's deck is full of instants and sorceries, but she has plenty of things that she can use as duress to clear the way for, right? We saw how her Null was so backbreaking, Spell Pierce was annoying. May can hold that second duress until, Max is either drawing a ton of cards with Treasure Cruise, or she can use it sort of as like a, hey, let me clear the way for maybe some big spell like Fable or Shieldred. And in this situation, May actually has this anger in hand, Devin, with Max having 2 Phoenixes. May might be able to get Max to just hard cast these Phoenixes if he's throwing a little land heavy, and she might have a huge blowout.
Yeah, just absolutely get him. And I wonder if she's thinking about not deploying. I mean, you would still probably deploy the Fable, but at least like that is, consideration for her trying to like make sure she can sequence in a way to get max value out of this anger. And it'll be interesting to see if that is something that's even on Max's radar. Is that something that he would assume that she would board in, or if he's something he's going to play around? And, if he may not have the ability to play around it, we'll have to see how this game plays out. But presumably May is going to go for a Fable here, and I don't really know if there's anything left in Max's hand that he can even do this turn. Any cantrips or maybe a Spell Pierce that was picked up. I can't quite get a good look.
I saw Island, and we have those 2 Phoenixes we knew about, and I think there's a Treasure Cruise, but I'm not sold on the Treasure Cruise here. And so, yeah, I do like this Fable here from May because, what's the best way to get Max to maybe cast something like the Arclight Phoenix 7, right? Put some pressure on board and turn that into a kill spell. From Max's perspective, it's good for a jump block, right? It comes back later. This will help May do that. And it's also her best way to maybe curve out. Maybe May wants to discard the anger, right? You do want to apply a lot of pressure. So this gives her that kind of option as Max is going to into the Flood Maw, that Goblin Shaman token. Saw how powerful that was in game number 2 at providing extra mana. Doesn't want that to happen here.
Yeah, and then, for May's side of things, you're kind of just throwing out these creatures. You don't really care if any of them die because you have that anger. You actually probably want them to die. Max is going to go for a cruise here. And, it looks like there were 6 in the grave, so 2 mana cruise. And, so Max not deploying the Phoenixes here, which is, May would have certainly preferred that if you were on her side of things. But maybe can find something like a Lightning Axe to discard 1. And over the course of the next couple of turns, if Max puts 2 of those Phoenixes into play, that anger could be backbreaking. We'll see if she wants to discard it here. That'll be the question. Knowing that there's 2 Phoenixes in hand, I would assume she's going to keep it, but it'll be a tough call.
Yeah, and this is one of the nice things about putting cards like Fable and Fear of Missing Out in your deck. Sometimes you can put in these cards that are situationally backbreaking, sometimes awkward, and you just discard them in these spots, right? May wants to fight this fight, but let's say, Max was maybe having some stuff that forced me to find a specific card. Well, she can just discard it to Fable and it becomes a much lower risk situation. Very similar to Thoughtseize against these kind of decks, right? Sometimes you'd want to maybe sideboard them out against your opponent who draws a ton of cards or is kind of resilient to it. But you can just have them good early and then redraws late. As Fear of Missing Out does have Delirium, so it's going to attack for 2 and then attack again.
Yep, it's going to come across for 4. And presumably May, post-combat, maybe wants to go Duress into Fear of Missing Out. We'll get a good look at Max's hand. I think there's a 3rd Phoenix. Okay.
Oh, it's 3rd Phoenix, Spell Pierce, Treasure Cruise, land. I mean,
good hand.
It's a good hand, but the Treasure Cruise we talked about, right? May, a lot of her game plan for game 1, hope the Treasure Cruise doesn't come very timely, apply pressure, and unless there's something in hand she really wants to resolve this turn with the Spell Pierce, she could take the Treasure Cruise now and just dodge it. Now also Max doesn't have a lot of refuel cards, so if May thinks the Spell Pierce is going to be a huge issue over the next couple of turns, she could take that. Her hand,
I don't know. She's got 2 more lands, a Fear of Missing Out, and the Anger of the Gods, so she can kind of play through the Pierce, even just getting to 5 mana. Looks like we're lining up the Fear here. And I wonder, is she going to discard the land or the anger? With the 3rd Phoenix, presumably the land? Yeah, okay.
Yep. She's discarding that drawing. And remember, both these Fear of Missing Outs are Delirious. So they're going to be attacking for 8 next turn if Max doesn't play something. Now, obviously, anger would not be the greatest thing here in the world for May. But it is something that, she has available to her and she can push a bunch of damage. And if she draws some other creature, they could get Fear of Missing Out in.
Yeah, and Max can't even really attack here because he's trading 3 damage for 8. So it's not really a good attack. Maybe next turn, if you deploy the 2nd Phoenix, you can attack with 1 and leave 1 back. But this race doesn't necessarily favor Max at all, given he's already at 14. Yeah, and then even the Fable the Mirror Breaker, there's this interesting line where, say May gets to untap with the Fable next turn. Fable plus Fear of Missing Out, you can go kind of crazy with that. It's not actually infinite because you are gated on mana because you need to activate the reflection every single time. But she can get quite a lot of damage in next turn if she's allowed to untap with those two cards.
Yeah, and just to clarify for those at home, what's going to happen is she'll use a Fear of Missing Out to give the Fable an untap, and then she'll make a copy, right?
Yep.
Sort of what Devin is describing there. She also, Fear of Missing Out is just a way that she keeps drawing, lands, whatever. She can play them. Fear doesn't need to discard to draw. If your hand's empty, you still draw. So even if May can't go for that sort of like crazy sort of kill you line, she's just going to start drawing 2 cards a turn. Right. Yeah. And that's what Maxx is about. He's like, hey, that's what I do. I play these blue cards for that. May has that available to her. Her hand is a little awkward right now. We have Anger, tap land, untap land. Not sort of the greatest spot to be.
Yeah, I'm not even really sure if this Anger is on the radar anymore. Now that we're just, lining up this potential kill. Ooh, we're just getting in there. Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, I think the way this works too is an additional combat step. So May can still attack with the other Fear of Missing Out. If I remember correctly, I would need to read the card to.
You're correct. Yeah. So it's untap target creature. You there's an additional combat phase after this one. So now May has 1 combat phase lined up. Maxx is going to take 2. On the next combat phase, she can go Fear, attack, untap something, and that's still 4 more damage coming through. Yeah, so this is going to put effectively 6 damage through, and May's going to get to keep both of the Fear of Missing Out.
I don't think it's infinite. I'm pretty sure it's not infinite.
No, it's not infinite.
Yeah, it's just an additional. So May can give the other one untap and have it attack again, or give it to itself.
Yeah, the text on Fear of Missing Out is if it's the first time this creature has attacked this turn.
Yeah, and I think that's what the players were confirming there. Less about it being infinite and more about like, hey, how does this work here? So I think Maxx maybe thought May potentially missed the window. But either way, that play makes the most sense for Maxx. That Meteor Volt's going to hit you at least one more time. Might as well kill it first. And you're seeing from Max's side here, he picked up a land. This Phoenix deck we've watched a couple times now. It does some really powerful stuff, but sometimes it also flounders as a free to play. Finds a Treasure Cruise and a kill spell and a Consider.
Yeah, this is interesting for Maxx. It's like you really want to take the kill spell, but you don't have a lot of gas left over. The question is, can Maxx cruise with enough left over to even cast a kill spell? And also, is a kill spell even good enough? Because if you kill the reflection, May still just has 2 fears, which is 8 damage. So I guess maybe kill spell plus getting back a Phoenix would maybe be enough, but I'm not sure that Maxx has the ability to do that. So maybe just has to take the cruise, exile the Phoenix, spend 2 for the cruise. This is a really
Maxx does have the Picklock Prankster that he can play, right?
Yeah.
So he, no matter what, it's from his perspective, is not dead, right? Because he can Fire Impulse down the Fable like we talked about, and then just block the FOMO. And you'll lose your Picklock Prankster, but you'll only take 4 with what's known information. So sure. I think it does come down to, do I consider to try and bring back these Phoenixes with another kill spell, or do I take this, the guaranteed thing? Because his hand spell pierce and stuff. Artist Talent gets skinned.
He still has 2 Phoenixes in hand too, right?
Yeah, he still has the 2 Phoenixes. Drew a Consider, plays land for turn, uses it to cast Consider, wants to leave his red man available to him, makes sense. Needs to hit a spell here if he wants to bring back the Phoenix, which would be huge.
Landing Axe would be massive because you could Axe kill the Fable and then have 2 Phoenixes on defense.
Oh, excuse me. With the Free the Fae was cast, so that we already had the Phoenix guaranteed. So we're going to play the Picklock Prankster. My mistake there, chat. But we're tapped out. And like Devin said, things get weird with Fable the Mirror Breaker in this spot.
Okay. So let's try to figure this out. So May can go Reflection, copy Fear of Missing Out, attack with 2 of them, and then one of them untap itself, one of them untap the Reflection. You have 2 fears attacking. Maxx can trade for one of them, put the Picklock on the other one. Before the second combat phase, the Reflection copies the other Fear of Missing Out. May still has 2 of them. You then attack with those 2. You get 2 more untaps because that's the first time that those 2 have attacked. I'm already confused.
I think she's just doing it in the main. I think because also we're tapped out, so May May's sort of just talking through, and she also knows the window is tightening, or the window is, getting shut here, as it looks like what's happening. Yeah, so she's actually just mathing it out now. She's like, okay, I make a copy of the first one. These all will attack you. I'll untap. I'll make a copy with the Fable. I'll do it again, and I'll do it again, and I'll do it again. And so really she gets to push a good amount of damage here. And Maxx doesn't have anything he can do about it. Now, the real question is it lethal? I believe it is, because I think every land represents 2 damage. Yep. And Maxx trades with the first one, and then the Picklock Prankster dies to the second Fear of Missing Out. And so that means each land basically represents a shock here from May French.
And all the loots or the rummages off of all these Fear of Missing Outs. She might even find a kill spell at some point through all this chains.
Yeah.
Yes, that's tapped.
Now, I guess she gets to attack with the copy one first too, which I don't know if that matters too much to this, but it's very powerful. And you're seeing this is part of the reason why May has, a couple Fear of Missing Outs in her deck. It's a great curve card, but also gives you this late game draw and combo-ish potential. You also see she has one Unstoppable Slasher, kind of the same thing, sort of hedging her bets here on how she wants to, wombo combo people, as we are going to see Fable make a copy of Fear of Missing Out, untap the Fable.
Yeah, so basically she can go through this a bunch of times, eventually run Maxx out of blockers, and then once Maxx runs out of blockers, then the other 2 can get attacks, and that's additional combat phases. So Maxx is going to take 2, and then 1 more combat phase. We're going to copy again. That's going to attack, untap the Reflection. If Maxx takes it, goes to 4. That one's tapped, can make 2 more. So he's eventually going to have to block, and then there's still 2 more fears. And this should be extremely lethal.
As long as we don't mess it up, I believe. Also, notably, May has just drawn like 5 lands in a row. So she definitely needed this window here. Yeah. Otherwise, she was just going to flood out and lose this game. You see Maxx fall to floor. We're doing it again. And like you mentioned here, those original Fear of Missing Outs all have their attack step too.
Mason, would you say this is Splinter Twin?
It's esque. I mean, this is sort of what we've seen from Fable the Mirror Breaker. Sometimes it acts in really weird ways with cards. Okay, now we see the Free the Fae dies on its chump block. May's like, okay, 5th verse, same as the 4th. Make another Fletcher Johnson copy. Attack, untap. And then also, we haven't really mentioned it. Fable can just attack. It hasn't gone to combat. It can just go in there too. Obviously, this is lethal. You see Maxx smiling here as May is going to attack and untap this Fable the Mirror Breaker and extend the fist bump. Congratulations to May French here. Moving on to 3-3. Maxx falling into 2-4. Not dead yet. There's still 2 rounds of Magic left. And Maxx wins either one of those today, he will still be around for day number 2 tomorrow. So an exciting moment there for Maxx. And May can breathe a little sigh of relief. She is not dead here in the tournament, even if she loses her 2 rounds of standard. So we're going to have an interview with our winner of that round, May French, here in just a second while she de-sideboards really quickly. But Devin, that was a sick round, and I love how quickly you saw 4 turns in the future. You're like, May French, Fear of Missing Out, win the game, and it came out that way. What an awesome round.
Yeah, it's crazy to see the interaction between Fable the Mirror Breaker and Fear of Missing Out. It doesn't happen too often because a lot of times they just end up killing your Fable once it flips immediately. But the games where you get to do it, it is kind of just, it provides this sort of unique end game that just gives you a ton of inevitability. It's just like more ways for this Rakdos Demons deck to kind of attack you from these different angles. And, glad to see, really fun to see May pull it off there.
Yep. And it was really hard fought. All those games were very back and forth. We saw in game number 2 where Maxx rips the annul, has the answer for the hearse, which could have gone the distance, but, we still battled through it. And I think really shows how this Rakdos Demons deck has a lot of grind to it, right? This is a deck that can definitely, fight through these sort of things. And when it picks its battles, it can win them. Now, classic mid-range deck sometimes has battles it can't win, but does have this advantage that these other decks don't, right? Things like 2 Fables going crazy like that. Fear of Missing Out going like that. Unstoppable Slasher is a card that we see, circulate from 1 to 4 copies in this deck. And sometimes you just discard spell your opponent twice, Devin, and they're on Lotus Field, and you hit them for 10, and they die. So, it's a really impressive deck. I'm really excited to see how Pioneer sort of evolves in the coming months. Obviously, a lot of the organized play from Wizards of the Coast is sort of putting Pioneer on the back burner for the next couple of months, but I'm sure Pioneer is going to come back, and be a big part of the format here and just, a matter of time, right? Magic's a forever game. We're going to be around for a while. Pioneer's clearly the format they support. They just got up on Arena. So I'm excited to see what it looks like in some time here. And speaking of excited, looks like May French might be ready to talk to us here. And let's jump on down to talk to May. May, congratulations.
Oh, thank you, Mason.
Yeah. So, how does it feel? You've locked up day number 2, no matter what, right? You're going to be back here at the NRG store tomorrow. How are you feeling, especially after that annul in game number 2 top deck?
Yeah, I mean, that was interesting. So it was weird. I didn't know my opponent had 1 or 2 annuls, which is a weird thing to say, but I think Max and Dom are sharing 3 annuls between their 4. So a little unlucky there, but it didn't seem to affect the rest of the matches. I drew pretty well out of it, so that was nice. But yeah, locked up day 2, locked up another free lunch. That's really what we're here for, nothing else. And yeah, happy to come back in game tomorrow.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that annul top deck was pretty crazy. As far as the deck list that you brought here for Pioneer, I know that there's kind of been a little bit of discussion, a little bit of debating on. I've seen some versions of Demons that have the 3/1 Blade of the Oni, some versions that move the Archfiends to the sideboard. You decided to play the Archfiends in the main, no Blade of the Onis. Talk to me about that decision.
Yeah, so that was a decision that I talked with a lot of people, and we've all decided that the weird like creature slot in like Rakdos is like generically bad. So we tried Unstoppable Slashers, and then I ended up keeping 1 because it was good in like it's good in like some matchups. It's nice to have an open deck list. And then Blade of the Oni is bad because it's just like a 3/1 menace that doesn't have any words on it. Like it's nice when you get to play it early, but it's still mostly irrelevant against decks that aren't combo. And some people are running like Graveyard Trespasser in that spot, but me and my testing partner Zoe Riedemann, we ended up going with Fear Missing Out, which if you saw that last match, it was pretty good, at least to close out the game there. So yeah, that's where we sort of ended up with. It's like weird. You don't like want like too many 3-drops, and like Unstoppable Slasher is like kind of like the worst 3-drop you can run, and like Blade of the Oni is kind of useless. And people keep having the round 1 of the Pioneer, I had to board out all my demons because my opponent had, I forgot what the card is. It's 2 Heartless Acts in their deck, and I'm just like, I just can't play this ever because I could just die, which is not fun. And I mean, I have a Heartless Act too, so I guess we're all kind of all aware of that at this point. But yeah, I mean, creature slot's definitely interesting, but Fear Missing Out is where we ended up landing on, and it's pretty good, at least in this instance.
So, you're into day 2 no matter what. How are you feeling about everything, right? We saw you earlier in the day. You had a little bit of a rocky start, against Theo. You had a little bit of mana troubles. How is your head at going into, these sort of rounds where you're still very much live for the top 8 of this event?
Yeah, yeah, it sucks that Theo's kind of whitelisted. I know he has the whole Pro Tour player bonus, so he got to draw pretty well. So a little unfortunate there. But yeah, 3/3 is definitely very live. I'm most confident in my standard deck, so I'm glad I've locked up the ability to at least play all my standard rounds. And if I don't win out with my standard rounds and like drop out of the tournament, which is unlikely because my deck is good, at least I'll be happy that I got to play all the formats and got to play probably the arguably best deck I brought all weekend. So happy to do that at least.
Perfect.
Yeah, feeling good.
Well,
that's
yeah,
what the
that's
question
awesome.
was.
So, May, you mentioned the most important part about getting to day 2 is getting that free lunch break. My question is, what's for lunch?
It's pizza. I don't actually like pizza. That was a joke. I don't really care about the free lunch. I just wanted, I just want to give people the content, Free lunch. Someone else can have my free lunch. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
So wait, hang on. If you're not getting the pizza, what are you doing? Because we were talking earlier about some of our competitors and what they might be getting for lunch. What's the May French go-to right now?
The May French go-to? That depends. There's like a Burger King over there, but I don't really like Burger King, so I might just eat like 4 granola bars and just like suck it up. Might just be that game plan. But yeah, I mean, I showed up for the tournament to collect my free jacket, so really, I'm here. I got the jacket. Really no reason for me to be here. I'm just here for fun. So yeah.
All right, well, you've heard that here first. For Fun Gamer, May French, happy to be here. Maybe she'll have some fun in the top 8 tomorrow. We're going to have to see how that goes, but we're going to take a quick break here. Let's come back to the match area, or booth, excuse me. And we're going to take a quick break. We're getting into Standard very quickly here. This match was sort of one of the last ones going on, so we're going to very quickly set that up and be ready for you all in just a couple minutes.